This is the Construction Europe podcast with the editor, Sandy Guthrie, and deputy editor, Helen Wright. This podcast is produced by KHL Group, first for global construction information. Go to www.khl.com for more details. Welcome to the podcast for April 2014. In the news this month:
European construction outputs January jump.
Construction growth for Urals.
Infrastructure remains priority for EIB funds.
Samatr confirmed to go ahead this year.
VDMA predicts 2014 rebound.
UK 2014 budget boost for housing and infrastructure developments.
Europe's construction output jumped in January, according to the latest data from Eurostat. A 7.3% rise was recorded across all member states, the EU 28, and 8.8% growth was seen in the Eurozone. The data from Eurostat marks a break in the long-standing trend of falling year-on-year output that dominated 2013. Last year saw average construction output in the Eurozone fall 2.9% compared to 2012, with output from across the EU 28 registering a 2.2% drop. So this year began on a more positive note. The highest year-on-year increases for January were registered in Slovenia, 42.8%, Spain, which saw a 17.6% increase, Hungary, 15.9%, and Germany, 14.1%. The largest decreases were seen in Portugal, 14%, Romania, 9.2%, and Italy, 7.9%.
An upswing in the Russian Urals construction sector of 3% has been forecast for 2014 by European market research company PMR. Now, PMR forecast that regions with vast natural resource potential would see the greatest growth, and that includes Siberia, the Urals, and Far Eastern federal districts. It said the increase would be largely fueled by state-funded civil engineering projects, mostly for the development of the country's transport and heavy industry infrastructure. The Urals Federal District is expected to have the fastest developing construction market of all federal districts over the next 3 years. However, PMR said this performance would be achieved thanks to a low comparison base after 3 years of contraction, including a 13% drop in 2013. The civil engineering segment is said to dominate its market, according to PMR. This is responsible for over 60% of the market's output, thanks to heavy industry. PMR added that it also expected an average of 3% construction market growth over the next 3 years from Russia's Volga federal district.
Strategic infrastructure is one of the 4 priority areas for the European Investment Bank, the EIB, in its 2014 to 2016 strategy. It said that to support growth and jobs in Europe further, it intended to continue its counter-cyclical approach with a special focus on 4 priority areas. Those are innovation and skills, access to finance for smaller businesses, climate action, and strategic infrastructure. Each year it updates its rolling 3-year operational strategy, and it claimed to have set ambitious lending targets in response to the crisis. The 3-year plan foresees lending targets set at around €67 billion for 2014 and 2015, with a return of long-term sustainable lending levels in 2016.
Italian trade show Samatr will be going ahead in May, despite rumours that it might not take place because of an Italian market left weak as a result of the global financial crisis. The show, held in Verona, is on a 3-year cycle, and this year is teaming up with the Asfaltica Infrastructure and Road Safety Exhibition. Organiser Verona Fieri called a meeting with the relevant trade associations to define together, given the continuing and heavy crisis still affecting the sector, the overall proposal and distinctive profile of the 29th edition of Samatr and Asfaltica. After the meeting, the organisers said that no one was hiding the difficulties facing the industries, not only in Italy, but that no one was willing to throw in the towel. Director General of Verona Fieri, Giovanni Mantovani, said the country was at a crossroads and that it must decide if it still wanted an industry or if it would finally let it go. He said that Verona Fieri believed in the show, with its strong 50-year history, and that the producers' associations were with it. He added that North Africa, the Mediterranean region, Eastern and Northern Europe as well as Italy were the key areas for the show. The meeting also felt that Samoter represented an opportunity for the sector and the government to identify areas for investment and development plans to jumpstart the sector. Samoter is scheduled to take place this year from 8th to the 11th of May. According to Italian trade association Unacea, the Italian construction equipment market fell 18% last year to 6,192 machines, and that was the sixth consecutive year of declining sales.
Sales of German-made construction equipment and building materials machinery fell 6% last year to 11.7 billion euros, and that's according to the German engineering association Verband Deutscher Maschinen- und Anlagenbau, or the VDMA. However, the association is optimistic on 2014, with incoming orders up 7% compared to a year ago. It says South Africa and Indonesia, as well as the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India and China, are expected to fuel growth this year, while the same applies for the European market, where in southern Europe the economic recession is now expected to have finally bottomed out. VDMA said the indications for 2014 are generally of an upward trend.
The UK government's 2014 budget outlines new investments that have been praised by the construction industry as a welcome boost for the country's infrastructure and housing sectors. The budget included a guarantee of up to £270 million, that's €324 million, to support the Mersey Gateway Bridge project. An extra £200 million, €240 million, to allow local authorities to repair up to 3.2 million potholes, and also £140 million, or €168 million, for the repair and restoration of flood defences. In addition, it created a £500 million, or €600 million, Builders Finance Fund, and this is designed to unlock 15,000 stalled housing units. A £150 million or €180 million fund is also planned to kickstart the regeneration of large housing estates, and £200 million or €240 million will support a new 15,000 home garden city at Ebbsfleet in southeast England. Now, Helen has the business news.
Sandvik is to cease manufacturing at its mobile crushing and screening equipment plant in Swadlincote in the UK. Production will be transferred to the company's Ballygawley plant in Northern Ireland, which manufactures similar machines. Sandvik said the decision to phase out production over the next 12 months followed a review of its UK manufacturing capacity and a supply chain optimisation programme. JCB has announced plans to close its factory in Gartersleben, Germany. JCB acquired the factory when it bought German compaction equipment manufacturer Vibramax in 2005. It said the decision had been taken to improve its competitiveness in the compaction sector and also followed a strategic review of the business and changes in global market conditions. Liebherr plans to invest €164 million to expand capacity at its engine and fuel injection system production site in Bulla, Switzerland. The investment is planned over 6 years, with the area for engine test benches increased to more than 14,000 square metres, as well as a range of other growth projects. On to contractors now, and Budimex, Ferrovial Argoman's Polish subsidiary, along with Hitachi Power and Technikas Reundas, have won a €770 million contract to expand the Turów power plant in southwest Poland. PGE, which is Poland's largest electricity utility provider, awarded this contract, and it includes design and construction of the new 450 megawatt power block. Recently merged Italian contractor Selenium Progilo has reported its first annual results as a combined entity. Produced by the merger of the two large industrial groups with effect from the 1st of January this year, the combined company realised 2013 pro forma revenues of €3.97 billion. That's up 13.6% compared with the 2012 pro forma figure of €3.49 billion. UK-based contractor Taylor Wimpey saw group operating margins increase to 13.6% in 2013, up from 11.2% a year earlier. Operating from 24 regional businesses across the UK and also in Spain, it said its operating profit for the year was £312.9 million, that's €373.7 million, and that compared to £226.1 million or €270 million in 2012. Finally, cement producer Holcim reported a 59% year-on-year increase in net income to 1.6 billion Swiss francs. That's 1.3 billion euros. And that was for last year, and those figures came despite a 6.8% drop in revenues to 19.7 billion Swiss francs or 16.1 billion euros. The company said the turnaround in its net income was down to its 2-year cost-cutting and restructuring strategy.
News now from KHL, publishers of Construction Europe. The first ever ALH conference and awards takes place on the 11th of November at the Biltmore Hotel in Miami, US, and it's close to finalising its programme. Organised by CE's sister publication Access Lift and Handlers, the event is a North American focused day followed by an evening awards ceremony. So far, the lineup consists of a wide range of topics from technology and equipment trends to markets in which powered and non-powered access serve. The conference will also hold 2 round tables, one in the morning, one in the evening. Don Ahern, Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board for Ahern Rentals, President of Extreme Manufacturing and majority owner of Snorkel, will present the keynote for the event, covering how rental has changed over the past 2 decades, especially that is for independent companies. Other confirmed speakers include Scott Hazelton of IHS Global Insight, Gary McArdle, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Rouse Asset Services, David White, MEC Aerial Work Platforms President, Brad Allen, Vice President of Marketing, Product Management and Engineering for Genie, and Woody Weld, Chairman and Chief Executive of Acme Lift Company. For more information, including tickets and hotel bookings, please visit www.khl.com and click the Events tab at the top of the page.
The choice of arbitration alone is sometimes not sufficient to ensure the best outcome of a construction dispute, according to Pinsent Masons. Although it is an international dispute resolution mechanism, arbitration is inevitably linked to a set of national laws which will more or less favour and support the process. Therefore, while negotiating construction contracts, parties should be mindful of this important aspect and seek advice on the most appropriate jurisdiction for any potential dispute. Among the most arbitration-friendly jurisdictions in the world, France is ranked at the top.
A new programming period for the European Social Fund is bringing a number of changes to the system, according to FIEC, the European Construction Industry Federation. In its regular column, it explained that the European Social Fund, or ESF, was a tool for creating more and better jobs in Europe. Having been set up in 1957 in the Treaty of Rome, it's one of the EU's structural funds. It's Europe's main instrument for supporting jobs, helping people get better jobs and ensuring fairer job opportunities. During the period 2007 to 2013, the ESF invested approximately €75 billion, more than €10 billion a year. That's across the European Union. This amount was supplemented by around €50 billion of national public funding, and the European Commission estimates that more than 70 million people benefited from these measures. FIEC said that the European Union was committed to creating more and better jobs and a socially inclusive society. These goals are at the core of the Europe 2020 strategy for generating smart, sustainable and inclusive growth in the EU. There are 2 important principles that guide the functioning of the ESF. The first is that co-financing ensures ownership at national and regional level. ESF funding is always accompanied by private or public financing. Co-financing rates vary between 50% and 85%, or even 95% in exceptional cases, of the total project costs, depending on the relative wealth of the region, that is. The second principle is that shared management allows for taking responsibility at the appropriate level. ESF guidelines are designed at European level through consultation with a wide variety of stakeholders, and operational programs are negotiated between national authorities and the Commission. Implementation on the ground through operational programs is managed by the relevant authorities in each country. A new programming period has just started from 2014 until 2020, and some changes have been introduced in the objectives and in the functioning of the ESF. There's more from FIEC on this subject in the April issue of Construction Europe.
The EU-US Transatlantic and Investment Partnership is the biggest bilateral trade deal ever negotiated and could result in millions of euros of savings for companies, as well as the creation of hundreds of thousands of jobs, and that's according to CC. It said the massive potential for growth and jobs with the comprehensive transatlantic trade and investment agreement will benefit the European construction equipment industry. It said it would relaunch the economy and enable both blocs to engage in much needed investment in infrastructure that includes telecommunications, energy, transport and general construction. CC did highlight several aspects to consider, including the belief that the European Commission should make sure that the provisions of the Buy America Act and local content requirements won't be preventing European companies from successfully applying to bid in the US.
The features in April's issue of Construction Europe are telehandlers, haulers and concrete. In telehandlers, I found out that with the construction market still at a relatively low level, some manufacturers have chosen to concentrate on the agricultural segment. Some of the improvements and new technologies being launched there could be extended into construction at some point in the future.
The haulers feature focused on the articulated dump truck sector, ADTs, and these included the latest corporate and product development advances that have changed the face of the sector in recent months. I also looked at fuel efficiency field tests for ADTs, as well as what might come next in terms of product development for the haulers sectors as a whole, and that includes rigid dump trucks. I also looked at fuel efficiency field tests for ADTs, as well as what might come next in terms of product development for the sector as a whole, now that the strict EU Stage 4 off-highway diesel exhaust emissions laws are in place.
In the concrete feature, we looked at some of the logistical problems that have to be faced when using concrete. For example, when access is difficult. There are also some of the new products discussed. That's it for this month. The digital and tablet versions of the April issue are available. More details, as always, at www.khl.com. Until next month, from Helen and me, goodbye.
Goodbye.
This podcast was produced by Construction Europe magazine and is copyright KHL Group. Construction Europe is part of the KHL Group, which also produces Access International, American Cranes and Transport, Access Lift and Handlers, Construction Latin America in both Spanish and Portuguese, Demolition and Recycling International, International Construction, World Construction China, International Construction Turkey, International Cranes and Specialized Transport, and International Rental News. Details of these magazines and the sector-specific weekly e-newsletters are at www.khl.com, where other podcasts and videos are also available.